Hi, I'm Julie Mombielova and I head up our test team here at Corecom Consulting. I'm joined today by Leigh Rathbone, who's here to tell us what makes a good test analyst. Leigh is from Shop Direct. He's the test principal over there. So we're quite lucky to have him today, really. Okay, Leigh, so why don't you begin by telling us a little bit more about your professional background?
Okay, cool. Been in the testing arena for 20 years now. Now that sounds a long time, but in that 20 years I've been in 10 different companies. So started in 1998 as a test analyst, and I realised very, very quickly in my first job that I was light years behind everybody else regarding skills and testing knowledge. So I devised a quick strategy of jumping around for the first 4 years to gain knowledge from other companies.
Right.
So the first 4 years, 4 different companies, and then I settled down at Sony Ericsson, where it was fantastic. I was dealing with cutting edge technology, the world's first touchscreen smartphone,
Wow.
which made me feel a bit like a rock star. It was really cool. Working on the world's first smartwatch in 2006. And it felt wonderful. I was there 7 years and I did many different roles there. And then in 2009 moved to Sony PlayStation, another company that has a bit of a wow factor.
Yeah,
That's the impact I get from people when I do that. Oh, I worked at Sony PlayStation. And I spent 3 wonderful years there as well as head of European test operations. Wow. Learned a hell of a lot, travelled the world, and learnt a lot about managing people. And from there I've been head of test manager at clinical software firms. I've been head of test at Think Money, which is an online bank company. Mm-hmm. And I'm currently now test principal at Shop Direct. Been there probably about 2.5 years. Done a couple of different roles there as well. Been involved in transformation. Currently looking at the agile ways of thinking, agile ways of working. And it's really exciting. Every day is really different, so it keeps me on my toes. So that's basically what I've covered in 20 years of testing.
Very interesting. You've obviously mentioned that you've been head of test, test manager at multiple organisations. I'm sure you would have seen a couple of hundreds of CVs.
Thousands, probably.
I bet. So, I mean, for you, what makes a good test analyst then?
From a CV, well, that's layered, many layers there. So I think the first thing to do is you get the CV, don't you?
Yeah.
So for me, CV is all about opinions. Just like testing is all about opinions. And what I like to see on a CV, I'm really quite picky about. I've got some real pet hates that I don't like to see on CVs. And then there's some things I really like to see about a CV. So let's start with what I don't like to see on a CV for a test analyst role. Well, I don't like long CVs.
Yeah.
And I still get, to this day, CVs that are 6, 8 pages long. And I just think, no. Get to the point, because I've made my decision probably within reading 1/3 or 2/3 of the front page. So they're just wasting their time going into detail with roles that were 20 years ago. I don't want to know. I want to know where have they added value in their latest roles, in their last couple of years. Where's the value add? What have they done? And when I say done, what I don't like to see in a CV is almost like a job description. I don't like to see, oh, I can do defect management. Well, so what? What does that add value to? Who does it add value to? What have you done regarding changing test processes that have added value to your customer? How have you added value to your customer by testing in a different way? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for passion on a CV. I'm looking for someone to get to the point quickly. Probably 3 pages long. It all depends on the role you're advertising for as well. So if you're advertising for automation, and you want a role that is heavily automation based, then you're going to be looking for more technical skills. You're going to be looking for what languages they've used, what frameworks.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if you're looking for more of a manual role, then you're going to be looking for your more manual exploratory testing skills. You're going to be looking for, have they done the Agile quadrants? What can they do around the Agile quadrants framework? Are they actually talking the Agile quadrants language on their CV? Are they talking collaboration on their CV? This is really important in this day and age. And this is the difference now, isn't it? So if you went back 10 years ago, it was all very well to say, yeah, I work really well in my test team. But that's changed now. They need to get across on the CV how they collaborate with developers, how they're collaborating with business analysts, the product owner, the scrum master, how they're adding value to their customers. And that's what I'm looking for on a CV. I also look for probably 5 things throughout the interview process, and if I don't see it on the CV, I do question it. And the 5 things are the passion, curiosity, the ability for self-development, and this is the main one, what you do with those self-developing learnings. Do you come back and bring it back to the team? Because that's really important, isn't it?
Absolutely,
So if you go off and do self-development, don't keep it to yourself. Come and bring it back to the squad. And then the last one is the team player. So you want the team player. So that's really what I'm looking for on the CV. To the point, concise, relevant, and then I'm looking for those 5 skills to be embedded somewhere throughout.
Okay, Leigh, so now that you've been blown away by the CV that you've seen, what are the next steps then? What would you recommend should be the approach at interview stage?
Well, I always think preparation is key. And I always can spot a test engineer or a test analyst or anyone that comes in for an interview and hasn't prepared. Okay. So I'll just give you a few examples how I prepare. And they are a bit extreme, but I think it'll land a message. So things like, I will research the people that are interviewing me. Now, I know that sounds really obvious, but when you go for a job interview, you're usually picked up in reception and you go to a room to be interviewed. And that walk from reception to the room could be anything from couple of seconds, or in my instance with Shop Direct, it was actually about 4 minutes because it's quite a big site. So how are you going to fill that time? Really important. So what I did with Shop Direct was I stalked the person that was interviewing me. I looked at LinkedIn, I looked at all his likes on Facebook, and I started to realise that he was in Shrewsbury and he liked real ale. So those 2 things I combined. And in that painful, what can be a painful walk and an embarrassing walk from reception to the interview room, I just said, oh, you're from Shrewsbury, aren't you? And he went, yeah, I am, yeah. I went, oh, you like real ale? There's a great brewery in Shrewsbury. And he was like, Salopian. I was like, yeah. And we struck up a conversation immediately. Nothing to do with testing. It was a relationship forming. And he realised I'd done some research on him as well, which I think he quite appreciated. So I would say prepare by knowing who's interviewing you, research them, look at what companies they've been at. Another instance was at Think Money, the CIO. I stalked him and I did my research on him and I found that he'd written a book and it was on Amazon.
Right, okay.
So at the end of the interview he said, have you got any questions, Leigh? And I said, yeah, I've got a book for you to sign. Pulled out a copy of his book and asked him to sign it. Now that seems creepy and a bit OTT. But we laughed, and I said, I don't want you to sign it. I just wanted to show to you that I've done my research on you and not just the company. Yeah. Right, so research the people that are going to interview, research the company. For God's sake, you're going to a company and you want them to offer you a job. Yeah. Why on earth would you not research that company? Because there might be something in there that you don't actually like. It might be they haven't made profit for 5 years. Would you want to go to a company that hasn't turned a profit for 5 years? Yeah. The flip side of that is Spotify haven't turned a profit for 10 years and yet they have no problems recruiting. So there is a flip side to that. But there's loads of things they can do in the build up to the interview. I do expect test analysts or anybody I interview to be smart. Now, I think in the old days that meant a suit and tie. I'm slightly more relaxed now. In the IT world where, there is this Google wear jeans to an interview and T-shirts. And I'm all right with that as long as it's not a football shirt or something with offensive writing on or the name of a band. So that's all the preparation. Look smart, look the part. Yeah, that's a nice saying, that, isn't it? Absolutely, look smart, look the part. So the preparation is key. I would expect them to know the job description inside out. Why wouldn't you? You're applying for a job. Why on earth would you not know the job description inside out? I would expect them to come prepared with questions. But what am I looking for a test analyst and the interview process? I think something that's quite important I want to relay actually. I always start the interview with a real strange question and I want to tell you what that is and I want your reaction. Okay, so this question is usually at the end of an interview, but I think making a test analyst, test engineer, make them feeling relaxed is really important. So the question is this: tell me about yourself, what you get up to outside of work. Forget work. What's important to you outside of work? Now, that's a very open question.
Very open, yeah.
Now, that's usually the question you ask at the end, isn't it? What's your interest, what's your hobbies, that kind of thing. Yeah. But actually asking it at the beginning actually can shape the rest of the interview. You know, letting them tell you that they like real ale or they support a certain club. You can have a bit of banter with them during the interview at the right stage. And I'm not saying laughing and joking throughout, but you can have that banter then. And that's quite important to make them feel really relaxed and calm, because they're nervous, aren't they? We've all been for interviews. You get really nervous, so I try to make them relax. So that's all the people side of it. During the interview, I want them to show me what they're going to come and add to my company. I want them to tell me how they're going to change our testing world. I want them to show me how they're going to become a better tester than me. I don't want to recruit people that are not better than me. I want them to be better. I want to learn from them, and I want them to up our average bar and up it to there. So in an interview, I want the test analyst to demonstrate that they're curious. They do their self-developings. They come back and share their learnings. They go to meetups. They listen to testing podcasts. They watch James Whittaker on YouTube and watch his videos and get great inspiration from that. They read a testing book. Everybody has a different style of learning. I want them to demonstrate in that interview what is their learning technique and what do they get from the learnings. How do they then bring them back and change the world? If they go to test conferences, what do they bring back? It's not a case of just going on a jolly. What are you coming and bringing back? Qualifications, ISTQB, you're probably coming across that. They've got to be ISTQB qualified. Why would be my first question. But those that have it on their CV, my question to them is, that's great, you've got it, but how did it change the way you acted? What did you change when you passed your exam? What did you do after? That's what I'm looking for, the curiosity. And a question I always ask in an interview, which shows the curiosity bit, is what's the best defect you've ever found and why? Now that for me is a killer question, because first of all, it really is a swerve ball question in an interview. It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But the answer is really important, because what I'm looking for is they found a defect, it made them curious. They then went and researched the defect. They looked for the root cause analyses. They went and spoke to people about it. They engaged people. They then looked at different devices. It's all curiosity. They then asked the why question. Why has that happened? And it's all this curiosity that I'm looking for. And then it's not just a case of finding a defect and throwing it over to the developer. It's giving the developer as much as possible, the team as much information as possible, in order for the squad to decide whether they fix it, what they do with it, whether the product owner understands it. It's the whole journey. I'm not just looking for, oh, I found a defect and it crashed the system. So what? It's how did you find it? What made you curious about that defect? What made you go deeper into the code? Did you go into the code? You know, it's all of that. It's the whole story. I'm looking for them to tell me a story. Storytelling is really important in this day and age, I think, to get your points across. So I'm looking for that storytelling almost technique to relay how curious they are. Really, really important for testers, that. So what else am I looking for? Obviously, how they interact with swerve ball questions. So that one about what's your best defect. I've seen testers with 20 years experience completely fold because they couldn't think on their feet. And sometimes testing is about thinking on your feet. Exploratory testing is about doing your next action based on your last action. That's what exploratory testing is. It's exploring. And if you have to stop and think for an hour as to what you do next, then you're going to be wasting time. So those kind of swerve ball questions, their emotional reaction, I think, can tell me a lot about how they would cope in a real life situation where they're given a swerve ball. Because let's face it, in software, when you build software now, you're thrown swerve balls every day. Because software is so complex now, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. So those swerve balls, how they're reacting. I want to know sort of what technical skills they've got. So have they gone below the UI layer and gone to the API level? Are they testing using Postman, SOAP UI? Are they automating any of those tests? Are they going to the developers and talking about unit tests? Are they going up to the developer and saying, hey dude, show me what your unit tests look like. Give me a test drive of your code before you actually pass it to me. It's these kind of behaviours which means they actually get quality. Because sometimes I think testing and testers think they own quality, they're a gate, and it's all on them. The world's changed. 15 years ago, that was where testing was in the software development world. The world's changed. Testing is now everybody's responsibility. Everybody should be doing some form of testing and thinking about quality. And this whole developers doing unit tests, that's great. But actually the conversation between the developer and the tester about what the developer unit tested is as important, because then that drives the tester's behavior as to what they need to do, because they shouldn't be replicating what the developer does. So what I'm looking for is examples of collaboration, what challenges they face with going and speaking to developers, because developers can be introverts, let's face facts. So how do they overcome that hurdle? So I'm looking for a number of things that makes a great test engineer or a test analyst.
Okay, Leigh, so everything that you've been saying has been very, very interesting. I'm sure the listeners and viewers will find this very, very interesting themselves. What would you say is the one big tip that you would give test analysts out there? You know, some sort of advice on their career growth and self-development, really?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think I would say get involved with the test community in your region. So every region, I think the test community in Britain is really strong.
Very strong,
it's incredible, right? I'm blown away by it. And I think if you look at the other crafts, I think the developer community has always been quite strong. The other crafts don't seem to be on the same level as maybe the test communities. So wherever you are in Britain, there will be a test community you can plug into physically by visiting people. But the test community is more than that. So that visiting people could be in the shape of meetups or the event that we're going to tonight, the Test Boss. So all these community events take place. But if you're not a person that likes to go to meetups, then there's other ways to get involved in the community. The online testing community is really strong. So whatever it is, explore where your test community is, explore where you get your learnings and your self-development from, and follow that path. So an example could be 2009, I discovered the test community on Twitter. I didn't even know it existed. I'd been on Twitter for about a year. I thought it was just a place where you just went and spoke to some celebrities and you might get some replies. But then I discovered a whole load of testing thought leaders were on Twitter. And they were giving away their thoughts for nothing. They were giving away their help and advice for absolutely free. And it bred this giving back sort of community feel. And it's bred and spread. And now everywhere, anywhere you get involved in the test community, you'll come across people that just want to help. They want to give advice. They want to help you build your career. And we see it at the Liverpool Tester Gathering, the events I host with the other guys. We have people making their speaking debuts, of which you saw two people make their speaking debuts when you came a couple of months ago. Test Bash, which is coming up in October. Again, we'll see people making their public speaking debuts there, which is brilliant. It's giving them the opportunity of life skills. You know, there's podcasts going on. So there's Let's Talk About Test Baby, which is Jem Hill. She does podcasts in this city every 2 weeks. She's out with a microphone, interviewing testers, saying, how are you upskilling? How would you give back to the community? It's brilliant, man. And this is going on. I'm just giving you little snippets, but this is going on everywhere. There's a great podcast called Testing in the Pub, which has got Dan Aspey on it. And it's brilliant because they actually record it in the pub. And you can hear glasses smashing and people talking in the background. But the testers, because London has that community of meeting up in pubs after work, it's a natural place to talk afterwards. So they've built a community of going to the pub and talking testing, recording it, and giving it back to people. And I think that's amazing. It blows me away.
It definitely is. When I started the test market, I definitely was blown away, and I think it is the strongest, you know, when it comes to like podcasts and networking events, and you know that the everybody is generally together. It becomes a small world once you're in it, almost. But in fact, it is big. I mean, could you give us some examples? You've already mentioned some events that people can attend, like Test Boss, Liverpool Tester Gathering event. Could you give us like some more examples where that people could attend to?
Yeah, sure. There's Leeds Tester Gathering, which is a fantastic event run by Gwen Diagram and Ash Winter. They're two really cool cats. They also do Agile leads, and they're involved in that. And they also do something called Leads Atelier, which is something they do every 6 months. It's a one-day sort of conference. It's very rustic and bohemian, and that's free to attend. Free. An all-day test conference that's free. So that's the sort of Leeds area. In Manchester, we have the Test Hive, which is every month. It's run by a couple of cool cats from ThoughtWorks, and they go really deep into testing topics, and they're really technical, really cool. And we have the Manchester Tester Gathering, which had their event 2 nights ago, where they spoke about AI and the return of the robots and all that, and that was really cool. And they had somebody from Twitter dial in via Skype and give a talk over Skype about AI. So that was really cool as well. So those are the 2 events in Manchester. We have Chester Devs, which isn't a testing meetup, but I think something really important to land here is if a tester wants to grow, they will get fuel from the testing community, but actually getting fuel from other crafts is really important. Yeah. So Chester Devs is really cool, it's run really well. And then there's Agile Manchester, which is a meetup, and it's run by, oh God, his name is Ian Carroll. Really cool cat. And that's all about Agile, obviously. So of course, if you want to get fuel, there's loads of different things you can go to. There's going to be a new testing meetup in Stoke, which I think Matthew Parker is going to get involved in.
Right, okay.
So that's not too far away from the Northwest. Yeah. So you can see all these little fire starters starting their own meetups. And it's because they get support from the test community. Yeah. And even the test community supports Chester Devs or supports Agile Manchester, Liverpool Tester Gathering. We promote Agile Manchester because we think it's a really cool event. So there's loads going on. If you go to the Meetup app, you can just type in your postcode, do search, and a load of meetups will come back and you can choose what you want to go to.
That's very useful.
Yeah, really cool. And Ministry of Testing has a web page that says, here's the upcoming events. So you can go to their website, and that's really cool. And just get out there on Twitter and say, dudes, I'm from this part of the country. Is there anything happening that you guys are aware of? And I'll give you a great example. A lady who works for a gaming company got in touch with me, said, I've just moved to Stockholm. Is there a meetup in Stockholm? So all I did was I put it out on Twitter. Yeah. The replies I got was incredible.
Wow,
there's
really
something like 3 different testing meetups in Stockholm, and she's now going to a couple of them. That's powerful, isn't it? That's
Very
the test community helping each other, just linking each other up with each other. It's brilliant.
Thank you ever so much, Leigh, for all of this information. I've personally found it useful as a recruiter. I couldn't imagine what test analysts and even test managers, test leads, and heads of test might, how they would find this so relevant. Just before we wrap up, obviously. There is so many events out there, but I'm sure the viewers will want to get in touch with you personally. Yeah, sure. How can they get in touch with you?
There's loads of ways. They can come to Liverpool Tester Gathering and have a chat with me. On Twitter, I am @Villabone. I'm easily findable on LinkedIn because there aren't many Leigh Rathbone spelt the way I spell my first name. They can drop me an email at shopdirect. That's leigh.rathbone@shopdirect.com. I'm very open to having chats on Skype on a night time. I often do that with people, complete strangers, which blows the wife's mind when I say I'm having a Skype session with a complete stranger. But what I'm trying to do now is collate all of the articles I write for LinkedIn and all the PowerPoints on SlideShare. What I'm trying to do is collate a central place. I'm just going to try and build my own website so that people can just go on there. And if they want to see a blog that I did on LinkedIn, they can go on there and find it. If they want to see a PowerPoint that I did on SlideShare, it will be there. So I'm trying to get all my thoughts that I put on all the different social medias. I'm just trying to put it into one place.
Amazing.
So when I've published that, I'll put it through all the social medias and it'll be easily findable.
Absolutely, and obviously congratulations on that as well, because that's a very, very big step, isn't it? Yeah. Building your own website and getting your own stuff and everything. So you never know, might become a celebrity.
I doubt it.
But thank you so much.
No,
it has
you.
been lovely and it's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks, Julie.
Thank you for watching today's interview with Leigh Rathbone. If you'd like to get in touch, please follow us on corecomconsulting.co.uk, where you'll be able to find some more videos, podcasts, white papers, and if you need some of our support on your CV or anything further, you can get in touch with us on there.